how's it going? I was just getting ready to get going. You know, like working, I suppose. Hang on a second. Uh, just making coffee. It just takes a couple seconds. I guess while we're standing here waiting, I could go over what we hope to accomplish, which is the braking system, get that all situated, get that all installed, the lines and the, master cylinder and all that stuff. And then we're going to dive into wiring. It's going to be just a lot of wiring. The harness needs to get fitted in the car, essentially where it goes, so that when the engine goes in, we can kind of make sure everything plugs where it's supposed to before we, put it in for good. So it's just a lot of routing, a lot of deciding where things go and stuff like that. So I guess, now that I'm fortified with coffee, that's some good coffee. Then let's get to it. I'm excited. Are you excited? I can tell you're excited. Okay. I should probably sit down and drink this first. Well, let's get you up to date, up to the minute with what's happening. As you could see, I was assembling the master cylinder. I was able to reuse the push rod from the booster, just like the directions said. And one thing I would like to point out, okay, this is confession time. I made a mistake, but it's not a huge mistake. See, I'm already making excuses for my mistake. It's really not that big of a deal, but I wanted to let you know because I don't want you to do the same thing. So, remember when I said I had to notch this brake pedal to clear this cross member here? Well, it turns out I didn't. When I had the pedal box in there and the pedal was swung forward by the spring, it was hitting and I needed to notch it. But now that everything is installed and the way that it is, it's not even close to touching. So did not need to notch it. It's not a safety issue. These are very, very thick pieces of metal. Yeah, not worried about that. I just did something I didn't need to do. So if it looks like you need to notch it, wait till it's like fully assembled. You still could disassemble it all, take the pedal out and notch it if you had to, but don't do extra work. Moving on, we're just going to, do a Jedi mind trick. That never happened. And so in the directions, I haven't been able to find anything on where they have you mounting this distribution block. Okay, I feel like I need to look at you for this because, well, I'm making a point, so eye contact is important. I have said several times, I can't find it anywhere in the book. I'll just have to make it up. In some of those cases, I later stumbled across it in the book, not in a place where I might have looked. So even if you read the book from cover to cover before you start building, which is a good idea, familiarize yourself with the process, you're still not going to remember. You might think, like I do, hey, I know I've seen that somewhere, and then you can't find it again. So don't worry about it. You know, the book isn't exact science, but sometimes it is in there when you don't think it is. Anyway, moving on. I haven't found any way that they had you mounting this distribution block. The thing is, I have the bracket here, and this is what was on the car. I wanted to retain that because, as you can see, it's kind of a part of the distribution block at this point. So I basically made myself a panel out of, I just had some scrap stainless around, and I duplicated basically the way it was mounted in the car. It was actually mounted on the side of the engine bay behind the inner fender, and I could see they just had two holes, one for the tab and one for the, I don't know, is that, it's like it's not focused or something. One for the tab and one for the bolt. So I just duplicated it, made it out of stainless, made a bracket for myself, and I'm happy with it. It'll be fine. So from here, we're going to start running lines. I had to get this all mounted so that I can start from the distribution block, work my way to that wheel, and then go from the distribution block under the car to the rear. So this gives me a location, so when I'm bending tube, I know exactly where things go. So I think that's about it. I should probably get going on it. They give you some, different mounting things, some unions and a T. I have to reuse the bracket. It's this bracket. It's actually on the car. It's riveted to the car right now. So I'll have to take that off and rivet it to the back side of this so that I can get all the lines in. So anyway, that is where we're at. I guess I'm going to start running line now. Well, let's take a look at how far we've gotten, which doesn't seem like very far, but a lot of what I've been doing is going to each basically part and making sure that the ends that I have for my lines and the junction boxes and everything match up. So basically mapping it out before I put it in the car. They give you these little tabs, which you have to paint yourselves and rivet in, and they hold your lines. You see they come out right here and right here. And then from your junction block, you'll have to come down here to a T, and then one will go to the driver's side wheel, one will go to the passenger side wheel. And then from this front lower one, you'll come down to the rear end, which I have used the bracket off of the Mustang. This seems like it's pulled really tight. It's not that tight, but also the axle's at it's full hang. So it's gonna have plenty of play in it. So anyway, I've got that bracket. So I'll bring a line probably from the backside to the top of it, and I'll be running that all the way down this side of the car. So I think I have all of the ends accounted for that I need. I stole some off of the car. So I cut this off of the original brake lines on the car, and I'll put it on the brake lines because that's where it's screwed in initially. So just stuff like that. And so now I think I'm ready to run lines. I think. We'll see. I think we can put the brakes on the brake project here. Well, not quite. I have to bleed the brakes still, and even though this looks like it's done, I need to flare this fitting and this fitting. I need to flare the ends. I'm just waiting on my tool. So, but I've got it all routed, and in the directions had a routing basically like this for the front, except in their pictures, they somehow got this end here all the way over to here. Not sure how they did that, except maybe they took this bend out of it and they just went straight up to it. I didn't like that, so I've got an extra union in there to this T-junction for the front. And then going to the back, we are just coming down here, all the way back here, and then we come up here to the factory location. You can see some unfortunate holes right here. That's where this was mounted originally, and it wasn't working. I had things binding up. So unfortunately, I have a couple holes. I'll put sealer in there and they'll be fine. It's just one of those things. I want you to see all the good, the bad, and the ugly about the experience of building one of these fabulous machines. Hey, I been laying out the whatever, wiring harness, and realizing, so in the directions they say, if you're using the stock harness, put it in, make sure the engine runs before you trim anything out. That makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. This is the struggle I'm having. It's got a lot of little pieces in it that formed around the inside of the car, and they're getting in the way of stringing it. So I'm kind of cleaning up here, trying to clear this table so I can sit down and pull the harness across it and just cut the things out that I don't need. And also things that I know I don't need, like wheel speed sensor wires. Don't need those. The remote keyless part of the harness. Not using that. So things that don't affect the running of the vehicle. You know, the key on the Mustang, it wasn't one of those like smart keys that, you know, the vehicle computer wouldn't start unless it was recognizing it. It's just the keyless remote to unlock the doors. That's all it is. So, yeah, it's going to be a little tedious. I wanted to make some like more visible progress and getting it all in, but as I'm stretching it out and figuring out where it needs to route, which is kind of not easy, and every time, well, it's like 0 degrees outside, so it's going to run. Anyway, so I'm going to just start doing that, and then hopefully get to stringing it in the car and moving on from there. This is like the step that's in the way of, you know, getting the engine in and plugged in and all that stuff. So we're really close, but it needs to be done. So I'm gonna just do it. And also the dash, which is behind you, still has the harness in it, you know, that goes to the gauges and all that. I still have to pull that out as well, but I'm gonna hammer this out first so I can start routing it in the car, and then whenever I get to the dash part, I'll jump over there and do that. So, fun times. Not every part of the project is like my absolute favorite. Every project has its ebbs and flows where you get into it and you stop seeing the progress you're making and it starts getting to feel like work a lot. So in those times, I just have to step back, look at the whole vision again, get excited about it, and start diving into the things that aren't really that fun for me. So with that little speech, which you can wake up now, you know, well, I'll actually work, you know. I'm going. Okay. I don't even know what this stuff is. I keep trying to do this the easy way, which actually turns out to be the hard way. So actually, before I get to this, let me walk you over here. So I pulled off, well, here we go. let's take a tour of the shop. So this rat's nest is everything that I've taken out of the wiring harness. And, excuse me, you may ask, I thought the directions said you probably shouldn't do that until you start the car, and then you pull them out one by one. It's kind of a catch-22 situation, because I could run it all loosely in there, and then I put the engine in, and then I crank it, and then I start taking things out, but I can't. I would be assembling and disassembling a lot to do that. So instead, I'm using common sense, and hopefully it pays off for me. So what I did is I took this plug, which feeds your fuel pump, your tail lights, your inertia switch, all of that. This is the only plug that feeds all of this. So I deduced that all of these wires were 100% needed. And if I ran up to a certain point, any wires that were in there, that weren't these wires, weren't needed. For instance, and I didn't go crazy. Also, this plug here is needed because one of these wires goes toward, wires into the trunk, the license plate light. So that's what this is. So I depinned some out of that, but along the way here, I had wires going to the doors for door locks, electric windows, speakers. So anytime I ran into a bundle that I knew what it was for, because I had labeled it, I knew where it was plugged in, I could go to the car, whatever's left on the car, like the door harnesses and on either side, and the trunk lid harness, I could deduce what was for what. And so, of course, I don't have any of those types of things, so those wires went. And I just followed them all the way back. I followed them all the way over to this side, because that side went to the passenger door on the Mustang. And again, did the same thing, just what don't I need based on the plugs, and then just followed it back. Followed it all the way back to the main harness and depinned those, don't need them. So that's how I got to this place. Now I've just got, obviously they're just hanging in here, but I did plug some in just so I can kind of see how maybe it needs to be routed. And then it comes through the firewall here, and then this side plugs into the front harness, and this plug here goes to like the fuse, underhood fuse box and all of that stuff. This plug here actually is the wiper motor harness. I kept that in case either I change my mind and want to wire wipers, I've already got the circuit for it, or down the road, say I sell the car, well, maybe someone else wants to do it, and you have the circuit for it, you've got it in the fuse box. It's just a matter of the switch, which of course all that's under the dash, and I can preserve that as well. So it's kind of trying to think ahead a little bit. So I was going to then come and mount my fuse panel up under the hood, but again, like all of this is formed for the Mustang. It's really stiff, it's also really dirty, and it has a bunch of wires in it that I don't need. For instance, let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so I need these. These are the horn. We've got turn signal, headlights, fog light. Okay, I should actually have two of these. One is somewhere else, I think on the other side of the harness somewhere. Anyway, don't need the fog lights. So if I open all of this up, I can remove all of the fog light circuit. I've already removed it in the car because there's a switch on the center console for it in the Mustang. That's gone. So I know that I can remove that. We have wheel speed sensor. Don't have those anymore. That circuit's going away. What else? Let's see, headlights, and then on this side, anti-lock brake control. That's that. Well, you can barely see it. There's a big box over there in the corner that handled all the anti-lock brake systems. Well, both of these plugs plugged into that box. I can follow these back and do away with those wires. So there's a lot of wires here that I don't need. It'll make it way easier to remove them, rewrap what's left, and be able to fit it neatly in the engine bay instead of trying to wrestle this, and it's just going to look ugly. And yeah, it's going to take me a little bit of more time. It'll take me a couple hours to do this, but I think I'm right in doing it. So again, I feel like the common sense of removing circuits that they're not being used, and they're not a circuit that is important to the running of the vehicle. For instance, I have all of the, well, a couple of these plugs are for, what is that? No, those are all the engine stuff. Oh, here's another wheel sensor. There's also a couple of plugs for some airbag sensors that were on the front of the car. Obviously, I'm doing away with those, so I can get rid of that whole circuit without making the system mad. It's not a very sophisticated system. All right, enough talk, enough yakety yak. Let me get to this one. the door. There we go. Oh, we got all the wiring in the car. Temporarily, or permanently temporarily. The harness is all plugged into itself, all throughout the whole car. It's zip tied into place wherever plugs were supposed to be fixed, or like the computer mounted. I put those where they went. I've lost my mind. Don't say anything, okay? Just, I don't need that right now. Fuse box, mounted that up under here. So all the hard points, like the computer, the fuse box, the underhood fuse box, any plugs that went through the firewall, grommets that went through the firewall over here. I fastened the hard points down so that I could figure out where to route and fasten the harness itself. I had to kind of test fit the radiator, because there's the radiator fan and the radiator fan plug. And I had to make sure that reached, so, you know, I worked back from that way, also from the back of the car to the front. Yeah, so at this point, it's in enough where it's going to go basically to hopefully get the engine put in. So I've got to prepare the engine for that and get the engine in, and then double check that all the engine harnesses can reach and plug in before I firm everything down. So this is a big step, and it feels good to have it done. So like these little plugs here were for the gauges on the Mustang. So I should be able to find the wires for all of the temp sensors, oil pressure, gauge lights and dimming and all of that stuff. All of that should be in here. Just take a little bit of hunting to figure out which ones are which, and go from there. It's exciting. Oh, I think we're going to call it quits. This has been a spaghetti episode, and it feels good. We're making progress, and I can't wait to jump on the next thing, which is something that we will have to find out next time. So thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And yeah, again, we're building a car. It's super exciting. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Okay. Whew.